Well, thank you guys for coming. It's a pleasure to be here talking to you guys, and thank you to Hillary for inviting me.
Yes, of course. So take it away, Martin.
Awesome. I was told that you guys would like to have kind of a inspirational talk about what to do in these hard times of being confined and being like an audio engineering or a music producer or anything like audio related wise. And let me tell you one thing. To be honest, most of the work that I've been doing, I'm pretty much confined. So there is not too much of a there's not too much of a change um, in terms of being like in a studio environment. My home studio is pretty simple to be honest, but I really miss like getting my hands on stuff such as consoles or being like in a professional recording studio or anything along those lines. I kind of miss it, but to be honest, there's no excuse to stop being creative and just doing more material and stuff that inspires you to be a better audio engineer for sure. So I'm gonna start just talking a little bit about who I am, what I've done, and I guess as far as I stop like one topic, you guys are free to ask me any questions if you guys have. And well, yeah. So without further ado, I'll start. Uh, I am a record producer, an audio engineer, and I specialize in doing mostly rock and metal music. But I've also done orchestral music. I've done indie pop, or also like kind of electronic music a little bit as well. In addition, I'm also a media composer. I do music for films, for TV, like advertisements, and I'm starting to really get into the video game scoring as well, which I've been told is something that you guys are really interested as well. And I'm also the guitar player for two bands. One of them is called Okay Goodnight, which is like a progressive rock, progressive rock metal band that has a touch of like anime music. And the other one is called Atomic Guava, and it's like an alternative rock metal band that has a vaporwave aesthetic. If you guys want to check out a little bit of what I've done, I think those two are like the main the main ones in which I've done production, recording, mixing, etc., etc. Okay, with that being said, I'll start mentioning a little bit of my experiences about working with, especially these two bands and other artists, and what has happened with them. So, I am a Berklee College of Music graduate, and I did one of my first full-length albums with this band, Okay Goodnight, not too long ago. Everything was recorded at the university with like the studio equipment from there, and most of the other stuff was recorded literally in my room because technology is like that now. You can do amazing stuff from your room. You basically need good microphone and I don't know, plugins. So that's pretty much what I needed in order to make a really good album to begin with. Um, this album was released and it achieved the number 15 in the iTunes Metal charts within 1 week of being released. So I was really like, okay, this is real, this is good. Uh, People seem to really like it. And production wise, it was, to be honest, pretty much like in-home in-home usage of really cool effects, mostly with native instruments. The complete bundle. I think that bundle is pretty amazing, and the recording of drums and piano was done in an SSL console. I don't know if you guys have getting in touch with one of those consoles, but they are insane. They are super great. And I think that's one of my proudest projects if you guys wanna check that out, because it involved like all kinds of recording techniques. Like for guitars, we did I have an Axe FX, so we did that, but we also recorded the AI, and then we started blending guitars with a lot of other plugins for Guitar Rig, or I don't know if you guys have heard the new ones from Neural DSP has another super great like impulses responses for guitars and bass. And what else? Basically, Native Instruments I think is a pretty good bundle to start with doing music, and not only this kind of music but any kind of music. To be honest, I've heard of amazing stories about people producing from R&B to electronic to whatever that you want to do. So that's one. Then I also produced an EP for the band called Atomic Guava. I know it's kind of a funny name because it's like atomic fruit. I don't know. And the thing with this one is that it's a little bit more personal. I think that from the standpoint of a producer, when you do something for yourself, you should do you should really take your time and play with every single aspect of the sound that you can to achieve what you really want to achieve. Um, as a producer that produces himself, I don't think about myself as a client, but I think about myself as somebody that rather wants to do the best kind of art possible. So this project for me was really personal, and it took me at least like 8 months to come up with the 3 songs of the first EP. But the reward of that was that we played a show, and some people saw us and they put us up on a festival called Epicenter. This festival, the headliner was Metallica, also band like Alter Bridge, Deftones, stuff like that. And it was pretty shocking because we did a great performance, but something that stuck out to these people that put us on the festival was the quality of the production in the songs from this only EP that we've done. And as I was telling you guys, it was like a process of being confined in my room, just like figuring out everything, from like how I wanted the guitars to sound, the bass to sound, the drums to sound. Everything was a really long process, but that's the kind of reward. Sadly, that festival has been postponed because it was supposed to happen in May, and well, yeah, with this situation, it's kind of hard, but still, like, the merit is there, I think. And yeah, my recommendation would be like, whenever you are not on a deadline and you want to do a good audio work, put it some love into it and really get into all the crazy effects, all the not necessarily crazy effects, but all the things that you love to do with it. Just tweak the audio, make it good. Other than that, I've also produced a guy called Jason G. He is like a fingerstyle pop acoustic folk player, I would say. I think I described him the best I could. Yeah, he has pretty sick videos on the internet. This is not metal or rock as I was describing before, but yeah, it's another challenge that I faced, and same stuff. Basically, recorded a lot of things, his vocals here in the room, and most of the other stuff in the SSL the studios at Berklee have. And to be honest, those are my proudest projects that I've done. Like as a record producer, I have done I have done more. Like I've also produced a band called Empyrean and another artist called Ralph Kinchek. And most of them are here from the Boston area. So most of them I've gotten to meet them through, networking at Berklee with teachers or with on the internet as well. But yeah, and that's pretty much what's going on with me as a record producer. If you guys want to check out more of the discography that I have, you can go to my webpage, which is martingonzalezmusic.com. Pretty easy. And before getting into any other topic. I don't know if you guys have any questions.
I actually have one.
Yeah, sure.
I know you mentioned about doing video game scores and stuff like that.
Yep.
That's something I've been trying to understand how to get into for a little while now, actually. I have like tons and tons of tracks that I've been making that can fit in almost like any side-scrolling type games or even like fighting games. And I don't even know where to start looking. It's like try to get, that music put anywhere pretty much. What would you recommend?
Awesome. Well, first of all, I think that having a great portfolio, as you were saying, is very, very important because you always need to show like your clients what you need. I think the key to get started on this scene is to network with people that are not related with any audio or any kind of music service or anything like that. Going to events or even talking, there's a lot of Facebook groups that you could get started with, for example, indie game developers or there are not like names coming up to my mind right now, but there are a lot of groups on social media and Reddit. There's a lot of stuff that you could be doing from home. And once you have that, like a SoundCloud page or personal web page or something like that, you can send that up to them. And a lot of people, believe me, a lot of people is lacking from composers. I think as far as you have good music and the music fits what their vision is, you're gonna get constant work. That being said, I think that the first work that you're gonna get is probably have to be done either free or very with a low pay, because most of indie games developers are really like doing all sorts of stuff for their colleges. Like it's mostly like thesis games or really low budget games, and I don't think it's a bad thing to start like with doing something for free or with doing stuff for the credit, as far as you're building a nice portfolio, because when the day arrives, you're gonna message somebody or you're gonna get to meet somebody in a conference. I don't know if I know in New York or even in Miami, yes, there are a lot of really nice like conferences with a lot of video game developers. Once you give them your business card or anything like that, and they can see that you've worked on a like really good amount of video games, like the chances that you're gonna get hired are so much better. So yeah, I guess that would be my response towards how to do that. Other than that, save your best tracks, the ones that you're really proud about, and try to use the ones that, I mean, always use something that is extremely good quality and like that it sounds professional. But yeah, like be intelligent about which ones do you want to use.
Thank you.
Awesome. I hope that answered your question.
Definitely did. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Anybody else has like any questions regarding maybe the record producer topic or any other topic that you guys can think of?
Hey, Martin, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Hey, Martin. So I also have Complete, and I use Machine as well. I'm not very familiar with Complete yet. Yeah. I wanted to know what is your DAW that you use Complete in?
Okay. So I have the Complete Ultimate bundle, which is the one that comes basically with almost everything except from the like high-end orchestral library stuff. And the DAW that I use mostly is Logic. I think Logic is like a super great DAW in order to like explore your creativity. So yeah, anything that has to be with like virtual instruments or anything like that, I've always worked on Logic, and it apparently seems to be working for a lot of people, better than Pro Tools or like Studio One or anything like that. Yeah.
And do you record your guitars live, or you use the samples within Complete?
No, I record guitars live. The only times I've used samples, like sample guitar, is, for example, when a client needs something ASAP and I have to send a demo, or I have to, like do like library music kind of stuff, I think it's a good way to use them. But I'm not saying that I'm not a fan of sample guitars, by the way. I'm just saying that myself, I record them all live always.
Cool. Thank you.
Awesome. Anybody else?
I got a question over here.
Awesome.
So in this part of the video games audio aspect, how much does sound design on any plugin are being heavily focused on? Like, is it like mediocre, or is it like more advanced? Like, do you need to be a good sound designer for you to create all certain sounds that you're trying to look for certain video games? Like, if a company's asking you like, hey, can you make this type of sound without you actually making it through instruments, do they actually, like, is it a very demand that you need to be a sound designer?
Well, as I was saying, it kind of depends on what you've done already, because that's what people tend to look the most at. For example, if you were to start, nobody's an expert just by doing their first project on something, I guess. So I think to start, if you're really good at what you do, you're eventually gonna be considered a really good sound designer. And I don't know how to put it into words though, but I think overall what people is looking at is really professional sounding stuff. So that is up to you to figure out if your stuff sounds into the level which you want them to sound. But it's also the client's like judgment. I have experience in which I think stuff should be done certain way, and then they think it's trash or they think it's probably better than they thought it would be. I don't know. Working for a video game is making sound and music not for you but for somebody else, so it's really up to them. Everybody's kind of different about it.
Well, that's one of the experience I'm trying to get to, like, because I do a lot of dubstep music, so it heavily focuses in on sound designing, and I find to do a lot of glitchy sounds, and sometimes I've been having these low-level indie companies reaching out to say, hey, your music is awesome, can you make some of these glitchy for a little gamers app that we're having? I'm like, yeah, no problem. But like, I wonder, like, how far would that get me into the bigger picture? And following with that, I also do a lot of voice acting, I do a lot of recordings with my voices, doing like voice phrases, catchphrases and stuff like that with different songs. Like, does that also help me in my a portfolio as we can speak? So like, not only I can sound design, I can also do like voice acting out of it.
I mean, I think that it's kind of like a similar problem that I have, because I don't like to do only one thing. Like, as I was telling you, that I'm like a record producer, but I also do music for video games and film and etc. etc. And it is really up to you how to brand yourself, because a lot of people looks for somebody that could do a lot of stuff, and other people look for people that is specialized in doing certain stuff. So you have to think about, if you want to be a sound designer and you want to brand yourself as a professional sound designer, how much do you want to brand yourself as a sound designer? You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like, if you start adding stuff that you also can do, that might give the impression to other people that you probably do sound design pretty good, but that is not as good as somebody that only does sound design. So once again, it pretty much it pretty much depends on connections that you have. I think the most important thing to have is a nice portfolio of the stuff that you want to do that represents the quality that you can give somebody else. So as far as you have nice voice acting and nice sound design, whenever you're gonna show that to another human being, if they like it, they're really gonna pay attention to what you're doing.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome. All right. Well, I guess I'll continue talking a little bit more, and as well, I'll stop. And if you guys have any questions, just feel free to do it.
We do have one question in the chat.
Oh, let me check the chat.
Do you have a YouTube channel, and can you share any effective insights on attracting new subscribers to your channel?
All right. Well, that's kind of a tricky question for me because it's not that I have like a personal YouTube channel in which I do stuff. It's not that I have a personal YouTube channel in which I brand myself as a musician that does production and all this kind of stuff. But my bands do have their YouTube channels, and they seem to be going pretty good somehow. But that gets with putting stuff on lots of blogs, to sending that to, not to everybody, but to sending that to potential people that you think they might like it and eventually get something out of that. So something that you can do is, I don't know, email lists that work a lot. A lot of people check out videos from sending emails and stuff like that. So that's basically kind of like the only answer I could give you, because to be honest, it's not that I know a lot about YouTube. I hope that worked with the question. Well, without further ado, then I guess I'll talk a little bit about music for advertisement, if that's anything that anybody's interested in. So with music for ads, basically it's not that I've done a lot, but I've worked with some ads from Dunkin' Donuts and Volkswagen, the car company. And these are jobs that I think that are really well paid and that you can get something out of it. It might not be the passion for everybody to follow, but I think it's a really good gig that you should always pay attention to, because they pay good. So this is how it works. Once you have contacted somebody that for example, any company, there is a lot in New York. For example, in New York, there is companies like Massive Music, Butter Music and Sound, and Human Worldwide, which are the ones that I've worked with. Once you have a solid relationship with them, the way it works is that they search for a massive list of composers that they have in order to demo the music for a specific commercial, right? But just by trying to do the music of the commercial, for example, just if you send a demo, it's not necessarily the music that they're gonna choose for the commercial, but just by sending a demo, you're gonna get paid already. It's called the demo fee. And with demo fees are usually like they change, they vary, but it's usually like $200 to $300, and just for doing a demo, I think that's pretty good. The chances that you get the gig are really hard unless you're doing like multiple versions of the same commercial, or like you're getting into a commercial in which you say, okay, this is for me, I really can do this. But once you get the gig, the gigs are really well paid. I don't think I'm allowed to say like how much you are gonna get paid for those, but companies are always looking for music for their commercials, and good companies look for custom music, not library music, even though they sometimes do library music as well, which is another topic that I will get after. But yeah, music for advertising, I think, is pretty fun as well, because advertising is like literally scoring 1 to 2 minute videos, which should take you hard work, but probably you can make a lot out of it, of working at one day in your home, literally, with virtual instruments, or like in a really simplistic way. I think that's a really good way to do music for anybody has any questions about that. Julian?
Yes, you said what did you say the companies were called? Massive Music and
Massive Music, Human Worldwide, and Butter Sound and Music.
Water?
Butter.
Butter.
Yeah.
And another question. What you mentioned library music and another kind of music. I'm not sure what the difference is, or I'm not even sure what library music is.
Okay. So, like custom music is the music that is specifically made to the picture itself. So, for example, custom music is the one that you do that matches certain actions on the screen or that highlights something that is really important to be seen. Library music, it's music that is literally on a library. There is, for example, many companies of library music that I'll get to that maybe. I can get to that now. So there are companies that literally have entire catalogs of music with certain moods, with certain like words that specify what they can do for a specific video reasons. So for example, if you were to look sad music or I don't know, up tempo night music or something like that. Library musics are a company that usually have a lot of versions from that music, and they come with free licenses sometimes. Like you're always gonna be competing with music that you could get for free, which sucks, but that's basically library music. Is music that you can get a license to put on movies, advertisement, TV, etc., etc. And it's not necessarily a custom music, but just music that fits what the directors of the movie, film, or video game or whatever they wanna achieve. All right.
How would you say you give yourself an? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
How would you say you give yourself an edge over the free license music?
So that's where you want to think. What can you offer with the music that you do that is different about any other kind of music, right? So there comes with your originality, that comes with what you can show other people that you can do, and that sounds different for something that you could get for free in the internet, which sometimes it could be kind of tough. And I know for sure that is kind of tough because I've been in that position. Um, but yeah. I think quality is the way that you can overpass that for sure. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, I have. If nobody has another question, I have one more. Once, let's say you submit a demo to Dunkin' Donuts,
Okay.
are you able to still shop that around to other companies and other advertisers?
Wes, that's the thing. So because it all right, so the first case scenario would be that the music that you did for that specific ad, it only matches the picture that you're looking at. For example, if you were to compose a piece of music that has like a specific hits when somebody's doing something on a screen, for example, I don't know, a car is passing by and you're doing something with the strings that highlight that or something like that, the chances that that music would work with another picture are hard. So that's the first case scenario. The second one, it pretty much has to be with the agreement that you have with the company that you're working for. So yeah, it is literally also up to them if they wanna like be exclusive or not. Yeah, that's the way I think should be handled. Awesome. Well, if anybody else has another question, I think I'll move on a little bit. And so yeah, I'll talk about like a little bit of the work in films and TV. So me personally, I've worked on short films of universities such as BU, Emerson, And I've also worked and doing library music for music companies such as Aircraft, Music Buying, Marmoset, and Liquid Cinema. I'll let you know. I'll let you guys know about these companies again in a little bit. So as I was saying, library music is music that you get from a catalog, and that catalog has a lot of moods and a lot of like keywords that specify what the music makes you feel like. So a lot of like a lot of TV shows, mostly like for example cooking shows. If you ever watch a cooking show, they have at least more than 100 music cues per episode, and all the music that you're hearing is not music that has been customized for them for the specific picture, but music that has been taken from these music libraries and put it on the screen, and they all work. And these companies have certain agreements about putting their music in there. So for example, and this is also going to work for example for people that has a lot of music that they think that they could do something with them, but that they don't know where to put it. Put that music on a music library, contact them. There is a lot of them. I'm pretty sure if you literally Google music libraries, you're gonna get a huge list of them. And this music libraries license this music to a lot of TV shows, films, etc., etc. Uh, these music libraries do demand high production quality music, though. So sometimes it's very competitive, and because the music libraries are so huge, also the chances that you're gonna get a spot on a TV show or something is very. It's not that it's low, but it's a lot of music to choose from. So it's something that you have to have as not a main income, I would say, but rather as a really nice optional income that a lot of musicians can get. Me personally, I have submitted a lot of like professionally produced tracks, but that I don't know what I'm gonna do with them to mostly all of them. Some of them are exclusive and some of them give you the freedom of putting the same song in different music libraries. And yeah, you can get pretty good placement sometimes. um, Other thing that I've done is I have this called like short films, thesis films, most of them. Just to be honest, I have not worked on a like Hollywood film yet. I I wish I could, but not yet. But yeah, with this it's pretty much knowing how to network and pretty much knowing how to connect with directors and stuff. There is as well as I was saying, there is a lot of Facebook groups, there is a lot of Reddit groups, a lot of like yeah, and just in general social groups that you can get into the internet, and you can literally meet people. As creepy as it could sound, you can meet people, and people is always for some reason directors are missing composers, and people think it's not that way, but you have to look for them in order to start working on films. um, yeah, you have to look for them, and believe me, there's a lot of people that is looking for music, or even just like audio fixing with Isotope or RX or stuff like that. There is a lot of audio work that can be done from home, especially in these times if you go a little bit deep into Facebook groups and reach people out, because there's also like really good sites in which people is also asking for a lot of audio work, especially for films and fixing audio dialogue, etc., etc. On Upwork, for example, or in Indeed. I think is a good way to do this kind of stuff. And recently, trying to get a gig with National Geographic. I'm part of this group of composers called Droid Mafia. It's not been officially like released to the public yet because it's kind of like a work in progress. But hopefully, with all these demos that I have in my portfolio now, they really liked it, and I hope I can work with National Geographic. That would be amazing. All right. Does anybody has any questions about that? Nope.
I'm sorry,
All right.
I left the meeting for a little bit, but have you been able to license any of your original music? Your like stuff with Okay Goodnight?
We've been trying to, but no, we have not licensed anything. The only thing that we've done is our music is like on blogs on YouTube. People that do podcasts about like shows and stuff like that have put it our music as their intro music and stuff like that. But that is pretty much covered by the for the distributor and the YouTube ID content. So there is not too much that we can do about that, sadly. Awesome. Um, okay, and I think just like as a closure of who I am, I also wanted to talk about the video game things that I know you guys like. Um, I've been working on this video game called Watamath, which is a kids game with a lot of like Asian culture sounds and like I'm doing this for a Filipino that is a game developer, and like it's been like a tough thing because of communication and time zones and etc etc. But this game Watamath, I got the gig by showing literally people my stuff on internet and by just as I was saying having good quality music on that. What a lot of music developers look for is people that know how to implement the music on the game engine. So I would recommend for people that want to do music for video games to get into Wise, like Wise. It's the programming which most people do game development. Also Unity and Unreal. If you get just a little bit of knowledge about those game engines, not necessarily about coding, but if you get a little bit of knowledge about how to implement music on the video games and the different techniques that involved to make video game music, such as doing the perfect loop, doing horizontal resequencing, and lots more of them. I think it's very important, and they really, really appreciate when you know how to do that, because just you're saving them a lot of time. Once again, I think it's important to just not stop contacting people and networking. I think that's mostly the key of getting any kind of job. And well, yeah, that's about it. I've been working on other video games, but they are mostly like mobile games. Oh, and wait, another thing that I wanted to talk about with that is that especially in music for video games, your first work is always gonna like highlight what kind of music you're able to do for a video game. Being that said, I mean, for example, I'm doing this kids video game. Kids music, like cute music, cute Asian music is not my main thing for sure. But now that I've done that, some people are trying to get to me to do that. And I'm like, okay, so this is something that of course I'm gonna do, that I like how to do, but that is not eventually what I really, really wanna do. So you guys have to be careful with that. Hopefully it's not that I wanna get out of this like thing that is happening with kids music. I would love to continue with it, but it's definitely not the thing that I wanna do for my entire video game scoring life. Awesome. Well, I'm looking at the questions you guys have written. Yeah, you would actually. Yeah, you would actually place the track with the visuals for a demo. Exactly. You just answered my question, lol. Networking. Yeah, I mean, there are different kinds of networking. Just be yourself, and always try to step up being a human rather than a businessman, because business should always come second. And I think people appreciate that a lot. Awesome. Any other questions that you guys have? Any like technical questions, or like yeah, like technical questions about what kind of equipment stuff? I don't know. You guys have any other questions?
Yeah, Martin. How do you go about getting an all-around good mix like that sounds good on different outlets?
On different outlets. So you mean
Like
like
for
on different audio sources such as my speakers, my car, etc., etc.
exactly.
Okay, so I do mainly two things, and one of them is to compare a song that sounds a little bit like the song that I'm working on. For example, if I'm taking I don't know, if I'm producing a dubstep EDM song, I literally compare how mine is sounding, and then I take, I don't know, Martin Garrix song or a David Guetta song or whatever, and I put it, and if they sound somehow similar, I know I'm in a really good path. Um, Other than that, it's kind of like some people might say it's a cheating technique for mixing engineers, but there is a thing called match EQ. If you guys have heard of that, match EQ is basically you scan the frequencies, like the entire frequency spectrum of the song that you're working on, and then you scan the entire frequency spectrum of another song, like a professional song, for example, that you want your song to sound like, and then they both somehow start to match. And when the process is finished, then you have like somehow the EQ, like the overall EQ of the professional song, and that gives your music like a huge turnaround. It's super impressive how that could work to clean a mix. For example, if you have too much bass and you don't know that you're having too much bass, when you match EQ it with a song that already is supposed to be like super boomy but still sounds good, then that match EQ is gonna literally gonna help you. I see this question: what's your favorite compressor? And that depends. That really depends. I use a lot of compressors of different stuff. Uh, well, actually, I would say the R compressor by Waves. It's a really, really nice compressor. I use it a lot on vocals, most of it, and I use it a lot on bass as well. Yeah, I would say that that's probably my compressor. But once again, I don't think that you have to get a one single compressor for everything. You should always be looking for. Sometimes just a really random bad compressor might sound super good on something that you don't know. So experiment with that rather than for the brand. Experiment with your ears, and yeah, that's like my advice on compression. Um, Anybody else?
Do you EQ before you compress, or do you compress before you EQ?
I usually EQ before I compress. Uh, I know compressors like sometimes they have like a sonoric change after, but honestly, as far as it's not too abrupt, I think I'm fine with just EQing before. Yeah. Uh, Somebody else has any other question? Well, if not, I think that's pretty much what I wanted to tell you guys. Oh, do you use Massive? Yes, I use a lot of Massive and Massive X. It's kind of it's kind of tricky. It's kind of tricky at first, but I think once you get into what everything can do and you mess up with the LFOs, everything is amazing. It's pretty good for making up your original sounds and sounding super different. Yeah, good question. Massive is awesome.
do you do a lot of resampling for when you do massive and whatnot in sound designing?
Honestly, it kind of depends. Sometimes I just get the raw sound that I want out of from stuff like Massive or Massive X or even Reactor. But when I'm feeling really creative, I do a lot of resampling. I don't think there is a straight answer of that. Is basically how you're feeling, what you think you can get out of a sound. Something that I recommend also for sound design, it's Contact. Like people look at Contact as like the library, as like the music library thing to play virtual instruments. But honestly, you can put any sound up to Contact, and it's like a pretty easy to understand kind of interface to start messing up with any sample that you have. And the good thing about it is that you can use it in any DAW that you want. Uh, how do you approach sound design? Well, okay. I approach sound design basically on moods and textures that that you want to achieve with certain projects. So if I were to do sound design for example, for a sonic branding project, sonic branding is when you have a small clip of audio that represents a brand. For example, the Netflix, the Pocon, that's sonic brand, for example, and that's considered sound design. Uh, for example, when I'm doing that kinds of stuff, it really comes up as a really random sound that I can make it sound cool and somehow you ended up liking. But something that I would recommend is to have the same sound uh, done different as many times as you can. Uh, Once again, that might change. For example, if I am working for a movie, like I might approach that totally in a mood. For example, if the movie is scary or something like that, I usually think about, okay, so something airy, something with maybe low, maybe super low or super high, etc., etc. It's um, I think it's part being really creative, another part really knowing what you want to achieve. So knowing what every effects work, knowing how every effects work, it's really important in order to achieve that. Yeah, that's how I approach sound design basically. Awesome. Um, yeah, well, what else would you guys like to talk me about, or oh no, you're welcome, Miguel. Or Hillary, do you have anything else to say?
Yeah, is there any other questions before we wrap up here? This was awesome. Thank you so much, Martin.
I felt like I talk a lot and
Oh,
sometimes I was talking really bad, but I hope you guys understood everything I said.
definitely. Does anyone have any last minute questions? Would you feel okay if they wanted to contact you directly? Would that be cool?
Of course, that would be cool. That would be super cool.
Okay.
How would you practice day to day? Can you elaborate a little bit more on that question, Juan? Practice in what terms? Okay, like if, well, okay, so for example, as I was telling you, I specialize in like rock and metal. So yes, I practice every single day, and not necessarily production wise, but also like the language of the music. I think that's very, very important. Like if you were to study, if you were to study, for example, R&B, you have to figure out what voicings on the piano sound better for that kind of stuff, because not the same voicings are going to work well for other certain genres. Um, yeah, I think practicing every day is very good to achieve something that you really want to do. Uh, and the way I practice is basically make demos. I make a lot of demos, and they doesn't necessarily have to be the best thing that I've done, but just constantly doing something. If you write like a 1 minute thing a day, I think that's pretty awesome. Awesome. Yeah, that's my mail and that's my website. Thank you, Hillary.
All right. Well, thank you so
Awesome.
much again.
Well, no, thank you guys. It was a pleasure. It was nice to meet you. And I hope you understood what I wanted to come across.
Absolutely. Yes. And maybe we could talk about doing something else in the future.
For sure, I would love to. And if you guys liked it, feel free to contact me.
Okay. Thank you so much. Bye, everybody.
Awesome.
Thanks, Marta.
Bye,
Thank you.
guys.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you, guys.